The rioting and looting continues in many states across the United States. Is it in retaliation to the George Floyd death, the black man who died while in police custody in Minneapolis, or is it just a reason to go on a rampage and steal? To discuss this in further detail is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, you've seen the video. Things are pretty bad across the United States. Are these groups just using the George Floyd death as an excuse? And is the group U.S. President Trump wants to designate as a terrorist group, Antifa, behind a lot of this?
Yeah, it's such a touchy subject here, and to not be able to say in the same sentence that the George Floyd death was wrong and looting is also wrong. It's look how far we've come. That we cannot separate the two and say it's morally wrong what these people are doing. If they feel slighted by the George Floyd death, as we all do when we watch that video and we see that man's knee on that man's neck for about 9 minutes, it makes everyone feel uncomfortable. That's the point of a video like that. And then to say that we have an issue with racism in this country, as we do in many parts of the world, that's a warranted thing to say. But to loot people's businesses, many of whom are of color, as a matter of fact, in these cities, many of whom are of minority backgrounds, many of whom have no insurance, many of whom it's a mom and pop shop. This is all they had. And to add to it, we're just coming out of quarantine when these businesses have been kicked down so many times. It's one more kick to them when their businesses have been looted, burnt down to the ground. It's incredible. On the foreign desk, we just uploaded a video about an hour ago of George Floyd's brother, who comes out and says in a video that this is not what his brother stood for. This is not what his brother would have accepted. And he condemns the protests, the rioting, the looting, the violence. That's exactly what any man of peace would say, any person of logic would say. These individuals are definitely taking advantage of the situation. Of course, they call them the looters, and what many people are saying is that Antifa is behind this. And what is Antifa? Antifa is a fringe left, far left group, Antifa, anti-FA, fascism, that they stand in opposition to right-wing talking points and fascism. And what do they do instead? They cause anarchy, like these protests, which many people, again, are allegedly saying that they are behind them. I have heard from many people, and these are firsthand accounts, so I'm only telling you what I have heard and what I've seen based on surveillance videos, is that many of these businesses that are being looted, you first see white individuals lead the pack. They go in, they break the windows, and then it's almost like they call in the masses, many of whom are African American and Latino and Asian and other whites, and they tell them to do the looting. Now, what people are allegedly saying and putting the dots together is to say Antifa is behind this to cause more chaos. This has nothing to do with the George Floyd death. And again, I will reiterate my position. This is wrong. What happened to that man is wrong. If we have a problem with police brutality, that's a conversation to be had. If there's a problem with racism, that is a conversation to be had. But to loot, to vandalize, to cause more violence to people who are undeserving of any of that animosity, and to say what many people in this country are saying, that they are angry, and this is a way that they need to release their anger, that's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable to give them a pass.
It's terrible what's happening, not just in Minneapolis, Lisa, but a World War II monument was vandalized in Washington, D.C., and a synagogue where you are in L.A., founded by Holocaust survivors, was also vandalized.
Yes, I broke the story on Saturday night about the vandalism at a synagogue. And it said F Israel and Free Palestine. Again, what elements are behind this? What elements are embedded within this movement? We've always talked about social justice movement and this what we call intersectionality, meaning that these social justice movements find a way to piggyback off of each other, and again, all born based on the same seed, which could potentially be Antifa or other individuals. Many blame George Soros, many blame other organizers that allow their emotional and supercharged agendas to interfere with our peace, our livelihood. People's lives are on the line here. and to vandalize, as you said, monuments, synagogues, places that are valuable to us all. Do you not love your country? And that's the main question to ask here. What are you doing? Who are you causing the damage to? So, it's a very painful day here in the United States, and I know that the reverberations are felt across the world.
Protesters, yeah, here in Canada have also taken to the streets in support of George Floyd's family. People have also been marching in Berlin and London. I guess in one sense, this has really united a lot of countries around the world as well.
Sure, and you know what? It should. Human rights is the one thing are the issues that can unite us. Again, to say that we have an issue with racism or police brutality, you know, this is the main analogy here is that cop was bad. Therefore, are all cops bad? The looters are bad. Therefore, are all African Americans or are all Latinos or are all Americans bad because of the looters? We cannot have this this uprising. We cannot give a pass to violence because this death was wrong. It was wrong, and those individuals should be punished. And if we are to have a conversation about racism, are we going to fight violence with violence, hatred with hatred, or are we going to have a real dialogue about what the issue is?
I'm wondering as well at the same time, are some of these thugs who are looting and rampaging, are they practicing physical distancing, Lisa? Will some of these protests actually set off a second wave of the novel coronavirus in various regions around the world?
Here in the United States, it was the anti-maskers and those who wanted to reopen the economy were on the right, and those who called them crazy were on the left. And now all of a sudden you have a switcheroo, and poof, COVID is gone, and everybody is encouraged to come out and protest and loot and to be around one another. And the question, as you rightfully stated, is will there be a second wave? What are the consequences with regards to COVID-19 and all of these individuals coming out and not wearing their masks and not practicing, social distancing with 6 feet within each other? What are we doing? What are we doing? And why is it so apparent today more than ever, at this hour more than ever, that there is such a political agenda behind everything that we've been living for the past 4 months?
Okay, let's change gears for just a moment here, Lisa. SpaceX's crew Dragon capsule carrying Bob and Doug, we joke about it here because of Bob and Doug McKenzie, the McKenzie brothers here in Canada, but the NASA astronauts docked with the International Space Station. Tell me why this is so significant.
Well, finally, some good news and something victorious, right, for the United States to celebrate, and all on the same day as these riots began. But it is quite significant to make space exploration something that is open to private sector. Elon Musk, my husband has the biggest man crush on that guy with all of his gadgets and all of his inventions. And as my husband says, anytime something comes up with Elon Musk, is, are you surprised? The guy's a genius, and he absolutely is. He's been working on space exploration and the SpaceX program, and we had a successful launch finally after the first one was postponed because of inclement weather. And it is something to celebrate because it's something that we can put the American flag on. This accomplishment, and to say that space exploration is not only open to the government or government organizations like NASA, but is truly open to anybody who has the curiosity, who wants to further space exploration. And kudos to the team, kudos to Elon Musk, and it's quite exciting, particularly for people who follow space exploration and things like that.
China's Communist Party blasted U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to end special trading privileges for Hong Kong. The party also said U.S. attempts to interfere in Hong Kong's security or sovereignty would fail.
Yeah, sure. Much more flexing of the muscles by the Chinese government. What's happening here is that the United States announced that we are we have our eyes on China and all of their activities, meaning if they're not going to be, for example, transparent about COVID-19, well, then we are withdrawing from the WHO, the World Health Organization, and we will allow them to side with China, but at the same time, we're not going to be a part of that. The United States is going to basically lay the law down. And that's something that Donald Trump said from day one before he even became president. As a candidate, he said, I'm not going to support acronym groups that do nothing for us. And the WHO is a great example of that. He also said in the same statement that he will not give the same privileges to Hong Kong if it's going to be, again, another extension of China. They are no longer autonomous. Therefore, they get the same treatment that China gets. And of course, the Chinese government did not like that statement. So they're fighting back with more words, more propaganda, as usual.
I can hear the sirens going on behind you there. More rioting and looting taking place, or is that just an ambulance?
Yes, right now we are exactly at the hour in which they stated that the protests would begin in my area. This is, a sub um, neighborhood, I should say, just a neighborhood of West Los Angeles, and they are going neighborhood by neighborhood, to places that are predominantly white and more affluent than others, and more commercial areas, obviously, because of all the looting. And here in my area, we have a lot of shops and buildings that have boarded up. We've been waiting for this hour, and exactly that's why you are hearing sirens in the background. And we're hopeful that this round is more peaceful, that the store owners can be spared and have some mercy on them. It's awful. It's really awful.
Stay safe, Lisa, you and your family. The Times of Israel was reporting that the first coronavirus antibody tests were conducted over the weekend on foreign workers and will soon be rolled out to the rest of the country after weeks of delays.
Yes, it seems as though these tests are going to expire. In conjunction with these tests being released, we have a bit of a small second wave that has happened in Israel. Now, Israel has been looked at as a place where they have successfully shut down, but successfully gotten right back up and fought the COVID-19 pandemic from spreading further. Their numbers are very low. Their ability to quarantine those coming into the country from outside has been extremely stellar. They have 14-day quarantine regardless of where you're coming from, what you're doing. If you were abroad, you get quarantined for 14 days. And their belief or their platform was that this is affecting nursing homes and the elderly. So the young people can get back to work and back to school very quickly. So now they're having a bit of a second wave. And what they're doing is they are using these tests that are set to expire. They're going to, now this test doesn't exactly tell you if you have COVID-19, but it will tell you if you have had it. This will also help them in the future to see what percentage of the population was able to have it and fight it, what percentage of the population had it and it was undetected, and etc. So all these statistics will go to further help them with fighting this virus and any others in the future.
Let's look at some of the COVID-19 numbers now, Lisa. Worldwide, more than 330,000 people have died from the virus, over 100,000 in the United States. Here in Canada, just over 7,300 people have died from the coronavirus. Now, in many regions around the world, however, it appears as though the curve has been flattened. What have you seen, especially in some of the hardest hit areas like New York, Italy, and even Brazil?
Right. So it takes time to flatten the curve, but once they get past it, it's almost like it's a wave, right? It goes from the East Coast to the West, and throughout the world, meaning now it's hitting parts of the Far East, parts of Latin America that it wasn't in before. Chile, Brazil, those places are having a very difficult time eradicating this. But we're seeing in places like in Europe, in Spain, in Italy, they are having more success flattening the curve than they did before. It just seems like any other virus. It has to take its course, and then with social distancing, with the quarantining, it looks like they have been able to flatten the curve. Now, in places that have reopened, where there hasn't been a slow and steady phased out reopening, we have seen a small reoccurrence of the virus in places like Germany, South Korea, Israel. The numbers are still low, but it goes to show you that, of course, in most places, you have to build up that herd immunity. So we're going to see a reoccurrence of the virus before it gets any better. It doesn't help that these thousands and thousands of protesters are on the street here in the United States. I wonder what our reoccurrence will look like. But with that being said, we're also seeing that it is focused more on the elderly population, and the people out on the streets are younger. It is hitting nursing homes. We're having a big discussion here in the United States about that, about the responsibility of the government and these nursing homes to keep the elderly safe. And I think that this information is going to help us not only flatten the curve, but to prevent the next curve from being as high as the current one was.
I'm glad you brought that up. With some of the epidemiologists you've spoken to, Lisa, are they saying that we're going to see a second wave? And if so, how bad will it be?
Yes. So it looks like most experts expect there to be a second wave, and that makes perfect sense in the case that people have been quarantined, they've been away from other individuals, and all of a sudden you're going to have people coming back together, and with a vengeance. We talked about Ozark Park and other places where people are just so fed up and they want to get out to the beaches and to the parks and they want to get back to business as usual. And with the summer months approaching and people are just always out and about, there will be a second wave. People are going to be in close proximity with one another, and it just goes with the territory. Now, they encourage people to wear their masks, to be smart about it, and to we're going to reopen because that's what we have to do. But we also can be smart about things. If you're going to go see your hairdresser, you can wear your mask. If you're going to go into the supermarket, you can wear gloves and a mask, and be as safe as you possibly can. It's just like flu season. I think people just have to change. I think we have to learn that there's a proper way to be around germs. And this really, I think people have become more aware of how to be in this current climate.
Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, thanks again, and please stay safe.
You too. Thank you.